Hey guys, this is my expected to be last video recording I'm making for you all before I go to long-term rehab at Wayside. So it should be just briefly why uh, something I just figured out. How about I'll just leave it like that. Um, so I had the word Triquetra in my mind recently because I've been binging Charmed, which is a TV show about three sisters who are witches who, um, like every week, battle either a demon or a warlock, which is someone who's out to steal their powers. It's definitely I want to say low caliber. It's not like it's a great show, but it's good and it's helping me learn about how women think and about sisterhood. And I didn't think it was helping me learn anything about magic until I went ahead and Googled the word triquetra just to be sure I had properly remembered that that's what it was called. Um, and indeed it was, but immediately there was a striking difference in the Google image result that came up when I did that. And what it was that it was drawn out to indicate like a 3D image, like basically as if uh, the I'm about to yeah, I'll just go ahead and show it to you now actually, because yeah, you're already wondering what it's like. This top image here is what basically came up on Google when I Googled Triquetra. Um, Whereas in the show, there are no gaps that show which thing is on top of the other thing, like there are in this. It's just uh, the basic Celtic knot with the circle superimposed on it as if they were both flat, just the whole thing fully two-dimensional. And so it had no magical power or meaning for me because it was just two-dimensional. But it has a ton of magical power and meaning to me now that I see it in a three-dimensional fashion, and I saw it like this, and the way it's uh, the way it is drawn is to put the circle going against the turning of the knot part, you could say. You could see that the direction of the uh, flow or the curvature that creates the Celtic knot part um, goes in the opposite direction of, or would tend to bring it in one direction, and the circle prevents it from going in that direction. The circle binds it. The circle binds the Celtic knot and gives the figure like immutability and stability and permanence. So I'm like immediately, bam, that's what my reality looks like. That's the circle, the Christ, uh, binding the Antichrist, the pattern, the other part, um, and in this like death match kind of tension, like all of the flow, the tension. It's like the circle is holding a ton of tension that the Celtic knot part is um, exerting as it just from its shape. Um, so so the circle's the Christ, the other part's the pattern or the Antichrist, um, and I guess what I actually first, before I noticed that about the Triquetra image that I saw, I noticed, oh, okay, well, so that's necessary to make it achiral. Um, if you have just the knot part on its own, it is of one chirality. It is either the left-handed or the right-handed, depending on your nomenclature. Because if you were to flip it so that instead of like uh, where if you were to flip where there are gaps versus where there are um, if you were to flip at every point, each of these 3 points of intersection, which thing was going on top of the other thing, you would be creating uh, the other chirality of the same figure. Um, so so since I'm used to thinking about chirality, and um, I mean immediately that's where my mind went, that this is needed so that you have like the circle that is needed so that you have uh, the ability to from within the structure, like from if you're uh, part of this structure, the flow of energy or what have you through this structure uh, actually constitutes you um, as it does me. Uh, the circle um, allows for the circle basically it does make it achiral, and yet in a form that uh, still clearly is capable of having uh, expressing the thought of chirality. Like you can still uh, go through this structure um, the, along either the path of there's a couple ways to you could break it down, but I'm gonna say either the path of the knot part or the path of the circle, um, and you could uh, and so you can still go backwards through um, the knot part and have the make the other chirality by going backwards through it. And so in that case, but you can only go backwards because you have the circle that's like your hard reference point that's fixing it into a three-dimensional shape. That's what the circle's doing, fixing this two-dimensional Celtic knot into a three-dimensional shape, so that if you go, so that you can go forward through it and provide that uh, incredible deathmatch binding energy, or you can go backwards through it and act as the other chirality. So, as usual, I'm not being as well. I'm not being as graceful in my speech as I would like to be. I'm just trying really hard this time, I guess, to make sure that you're all following me, to put everything in words that just about anyone might understand. And I think I'm doing that at the expense um, of quickness, and it's taking me longer to say what I'm trying to say for that reason. And I ought to be focusing more on quickness so that more of you will watch through to the end of it. But uh, I'm too far through to go back now. Or maybe I'm not. Maybe I'll do a take two in a second. So anyway, So, I'm there's only uh, there's only one thing that I have to say before I close this video. There's more that I plan to say, but I think given the time, it's not necessary. And it is this. Fiveness. Fiveness is my plan for the future of our world, which is both retains the Christ and opens up to non-existent all of the limitations that exist in the present world. Things like death and a difference between what's real and what's unreal, and time that only goes in one direction, or causality that only goes in one direction. Fiveness takes away all the limitations, increases our true dimensionality, and or shows us our true dimensionality, you could say, which is one greater than we see now. And you can tell the difference because, see, in this figure of the Triquetra, the circle isn't going the opposite direction of the knot part. They're both going in the same direction. The circle isn't binding and fighting against the Triquetra knot, but rather the circle is maintained as an essential, indispensable, holy, sacred part of the figure, but there's total freedom allowed for the Celtic knot part. There's no fighting, no tension, no gridlock, and that's what I want to get to. That's why I'm doing all of this, and that's why I hope I do all of the next steps that I'm gonna take. And the end. Bye. Love you.